Alright, I'm Steven with Rain's Car Scene, and I want to do an overview on my 2020 Mazda Premium with the 6-speed manual. First thing I want to do, I just want to take a look at this color. I'd say this color has really grown on me since the time of having it. It is the polymetal gray. Absolutely phenomenal. One of the best colors I think this car came out in. Secondly, they put an amazing headlight in this. Straight up steers with you as you're steering at night. Amazing, lighting up the road massively. I'd say I'm a big fan of the look of this car in general. Another thing with this car, so I'm kind of going to go over the gist of what I like and what I dislike with this car, which there's not a whole lot that I dislike, but there's a few things. But this interior, absolutely amazing. Has the leather red seats, carbon fiber in a lot of different places. But getting back to this, has a decent amount of back seat space. I will say it is hard if you have more than one car seat in here, but it is a good car if you want to get into the car scene and you have children. It's phenomenal with how it drives, everything. This car is one of the best shifting cars that I've ever been in. And then you get, with the hatchback, you get plenty of trunk space for whatever you can fit in here. The strollers, anything, diaper bags, whatever you need will fit right in there. And let's take a look at this. So I got my boy's car seat in here. Granted, we have to have the passenger seat moved up just a little bit so he has leg room, but once he goes into a booster seat, it'd be perfectly fine for me to have him in here, the seat all the way back, no issues. Alright, so I'm going to get a little more in-depth on all the features that this cars come with. And one of my favorite features, because I like to be cold all the time. I like to have my side on low. Anyone else that can get in my car, they can literally go right here, turn their side to whatever they want. It is an amazing feature. Absolutely love it. And then with this, I will say the radio that comes in this, I'll give the sound system like a 9 out of 10. I feel like it could be slightly better, but for the price that you pay for one of these cars, it is a phenomenal sound system, and it has an amazing bass that comes with it. I'll say one of the trickiest things with this, when you go in to try to use the radio, when I first bought this car, I had no idea how to use it. You physically go through a whole bunch of different stuff just to get to where you want to go. And it is kind of weird to me that the controls are down by the shifter compared to like driving older cars where it's up by the actual radio, but you get used to it and it actually becomes like very handy. Let me see that for a second. We're gonna get into the look of the projector that comes on this so you can see your speed. It's one thing that it is kind of distracting at first because you constantly see your speed as you're going down the road, but it is also very handy with not having to look down at the speedometer. You can just kind of glance down at the glass and be able to see it. It's pretty awesome. Alright, let's get into the one and kind of major issue that I've had with this, where this car does the cylinder deactivation where you get that really crazy miles per gallon. I've had an issue with oil consumption, which it's been to the dealer multiple different times over it. I wouldn't put it down on the car because there's chips and stuff that you can get to put in these where it stops the cylinder deactivation. Then you don't really have issues with that. You just don't get the best fuel mileage out of it. But other than that, this car has been one of the best cars that I've owned. And after driving it as long as I have, I can really say I'd recommend it to anyone that wants to get into the car community to go out and at least look at one of these. If you you can't afford a new one, there's plenty of used ones out there and you can get them way cheaper. But other than that, this car has been pretty good, and it's been a great like family car that I've really been able to go out to a lot of car meets and stuff and have a lot of fun. So I'm gonna do a little kind of show you guys how it drives down the road, all that, and kind of just do a little more talking about the car while we're doing that. So I've had this car since April of 2020. Granted, it's been in the shop quite a few times for oil consumption, but it's not like, I'll say it's like, I do have to check it. I do normally keep oil in it, but like honestly, if you're used to driving a shitbox, like it's kind of one of them things that you kind of do anyways. And that's kind of like the cars that I had before this. They weren't really the best cars, so this was like a huge upgrade to me. And it's been one of the best purchases that I've made. And I've just recently started running some Lucas in the motor oil, where it's going to help out with the oil burning, all that. So hopefully that fixes that and just kind of helps the seals of the pistons. But I kind of just want to show you guys how this thing shifts and everything else. And why is it such a long red light? I don't understand this. Honestly, the car shifts very well. It drives absolutely amazing. This thing's like one of the best handling cars that you can buy in its price range. They did a whole bunch of different stuff with like G vectoring and all that with the suspension, so the suspension kind of adjusts itself as you're driving through, taking corners. Honestly, in the front seats, you can go pretty fast through corners and you don't feel like you're going as fast as you are. I'll admit, I've taken it pretty fast through some corners at high rate of speeds where you would think that the car would not be performing very well, and it is surprisingly one of the best performing cars that I've owned with going through corners and being able to have decent acceleration into corners. Which, like, normally you don't accelerate into a corner in any car. This car is one of them ones that's kind of an exception, where you go through a corner and you can downshift and accelerate, no issues. Does amazing in the rain. I'll admit, I had a 2008 Mazda 3. That thing was one of the worst cars to drive in the rain. You talk about trying to get traction, the thing was awful. You'd sit there and spin all day long. This thing, with the traction control and all the G vectoring and all that, drives like normal. It's absolutely insane what they did with this car. But in like an overview, I love my car. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Wouldn't get rid of it. Hopefully sooner than later it'll be getting a turbo kit. But there's a couple other things that I want to do to a couple of different cars before I get to making this one into something that's kind of just going to sit there until it's done. I do have a 97 F-150 that I plan on doing some stuff to. Probably going to lower it here soon. Try to get it to where it handles a lot better. Granted, it's a big old heavy truck, but we're going to see how much power we can put out of a 4.6 and how much better we can make it handle. And who knows, we might build a drift truck. Let's see when we get there. But if you guys want to see that, follow. We're going to start that build very soon. Granted, it's going to be a lot of body work, all that, maybe lowering it before we get into anything with the motor. But that truck has a 2000 Ford Mustang motor in it, which is out of the Shelby Mustang. It's making roughly 400 to the wheels. It's kind of fun to drive. Definitely needs a lot more power for being 5,200 pounds, but it's reliable. Since that motor has been put in there, all that, only thing that's major that's went out on that truck is a fuel pump, which then it got upgraded, all that, injectors, everything. So if you guys want to follow the build on that, that is definitely coming soon. And then we're gonna try to find some old hot rod to restore. So that'll definitely be fun too.